It was a quiet Thursday evening when Maya sat alone in the living room, her hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee. The soft ticking of the wall clock filled the silence of the house. The time read 9:47 p.m., and her husband, Ryan, was still not home. He had told her that morning that he'd be working late, that there was an urgent project at the office that needed his attention. At first, Maya didn't think much of it. Ryan often stayed late at work. He was a marketing manager at a big firm, and deadlines were part of his life. But something about that night felt different. The silence felt heavier. The air around her seemed strange, and a small voice in her mind whispered something was wrong. She tried to push the thought away, but it wouldn't leave. I still remember that night, the night everything changed for her forever. Maya stood up and walked toward the window. Outside, the streetlights glowed softly, painting the road in shades of orange and gold. The neighborhood was calm, only the distant hum of cars broke the silence. She checked her phone again. No message. No call. Ryan always texted her when he was running late, but tonight, there was nothing. A cold feeling ran down her spine. She dialed his number, and it rang 3 times before going to voicemail. "Hey, it's Ryan. Can't take your call right now, leave a message." Maya hung up without speaking. Her heart beat faster, and a knot began to form in her stomach. She tried to distract herself. She cleaned the kitchen, wiped the counters, and folded the clothes lying on the sofa. But her thoughts kept circling back to Ryan. Around 10:30 p.m., she sat back down on the couch, picked up her phone, and opened the family tracking app they both had installed months ago. It was something they used for safety. Ryan had insisted on it when Maya started her evening classes. She hesitated for a second, then tapped his name. What she saw made her freeze. The little GPS dot that represented Ryan wasn't anywhere near his office. It wasn't even in the city center. Instead, it was moving slowly on a road leading toward the outskirts of town, an area full of old houses, motels, and warehouses. Maya blinked, thinking maybe the app was wrong. But as she refreshed the map again, the dot kept moving in the same direction. Her fingers started shaking. Why would he be there? It didn't make sense. She zoomed in, watching the dot stop near a small, quiet street. There were only a few houses there. Then it stopped moving completely. Ryan's phone was stationary. Her heart pounded hard in her chest. She whispered to herself, maybe he's helping someone, maybe it's work-related. But deep down, she knew it wasn't. She stared at the map for a long minute, then slowly stood up. Her body felt light, almost numb. She walked into the bedroom and grabbed her car keys from the drawer. She didn't even realize she was crying until a tear rolled down her cheek and hit the floor. The drive felt like a dream. The rain had started falling lightly, and the windshield wipers moved in slow, tired arcs. Streetlights flashed past her as she followed the GPS signal on her phone mounted to the dashboard. Every few minutes, she checked if the dot was still there. It was. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel. Her mind raced with thoughts she didn't want to think. Was he lying? Was he with someone else? Or was he in trouble? The last thought scared her most. After about 20 minutes, she turned onto the narrow street where Ryan's GPS had stopped. It was dark, quiet, and almost deserted. The houses were old, most of them with peeling paint and overgrown gardens. She slowed the car, her headlights sweeping across the cracked pavement. Then she saw it, Ryan's car. Parked under a large oak tree, half hidden in shadow. The familiar silver sedan looked oddly out of place there. Her breath caught in her throat. She turned off the engine and sat in silence, staring at it. The street was so quiet that she could hear the soft drumming of the rain on the roof. She picked up her phone again. The dot hadn't moved. Ryan's car lights were off, and there was no sign of movement inside. Maya's heart raced faster. She stepped out of her car slowly, the cool air hitting her face. Her shoes splashed lightly on the wet road as she walked closer. She could smell the dampness of the earth and the faint scent of gasoline. Her hands trembled as she approached Ryan's car and peered through the fogged-up window. It was empty. The driver's seat, the passenger seat, both empty. Her chest tightened as confusion washed over her. She looked around the street. All the houses were dark except one at the far end. A single yellow light glowed faintly behind drawn curtains. Something about that light made her uneasy. It was dim and flickering, like a candle. She took a slow step back and glanced at her phone again. The GPS still showed Ryan's location at this very spot. He had to be nearby. For a moment, she considered calling the police, but what would she tell them? That she tracked her husband's phone to an old street and found his car? It wasn't illegal. And what if it was nothing? What if he was really working, meeting someone for business? Her mind screamed for her to leave, but her heart wouldn't let her. She needed to know the truth. She started walking toward the house with the light. The closer she got, the more her body shook, not from cold, but from fear. The sound of her own footsteps on the wet ground echoed in her ears. The curtains of the house fluttered slightly, as if someone had just walked past inside. Maya froze. Then she heard it, a soft sound, like someone laughing. A man's laugh. Her heart stopped. She knew that laugh. It was Ryan. Her breathing became shallow. She crept closer until she could see through a small gap in the curtain. What she saw made her stomach twist painfully. Ryan was sitting on a couch, leaning close to a woman. The woman's face was hidden, but Maya could see her hand on his arm. They were talking softly, laughing. Maya felt the ground slip from under her. Her vision blurred with tears, and for a moment, she thought she might faint. She stepped back, accidentally stepping on a small twig that cracked under her foot. The sound was loud in the quiet street. Inside, Ryan's head turned suddenly toward the window. Maya quickly crouched down, hiding behind a bush. Her heart hammered in her chest as she waited, not daring to breathe. The door of the house creaked open a moment later. She could hear Ryan's footsteps coming out onto the porch. Maya? His voice called softly into the night. Her name. He looked around, confused. Maya pressed her hand over her mouth, forcing herself not to make a sound. After a few seconds, Ryan turned back and went inside, closing the door behind him. Maya stayed there for a long time, crouched in the rain, tears mixing with water on her cheeks. Her mind was a storm of disbelief, pain, and anger. The man she loved, the man who promised her honesty, was here in another woman's house while pretending to be at work. She felt her chest tighten with a pain so sharp it was almost physical. Finally, she stood up, her legs shaking. She turned and walked back to her car, each step heavier than the last. As she drove away, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Ryan. Still at work, don't wait up, it said. She stared at the screen, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. The truth and the lie sat side by side, and in that moment, Maya felt something inside her break. But just as she was about to put her phone down, something strange happened. The GPS dot moved again, only this time, it wasn't back at the house. It was further down the street, moving into a dark wooded area behind the neighborhood. Ryan's car was still parked where she saw it. Her heart froze. If Ryan's phone, and maybe Ryan himself, was moving into the woods, then who was inside that house? Maya gripped the steering wheel tightly, her eyes wide with fear. The rain began to fall harder, tapping on the windshield like impatient fingers. A shiver ran down her spine as she realized one terrifying thing: she wasn't just dealing with a lie anymore. Something far worse was happening. And deep down, she knew, this night was only the beginning. Maya sat in her car for several minutes, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her heart was still pounding from what she had seen. The image of Ryan laughing with that woman burned in her mind like a cruel dream she couldn't escape. But now, As she stared at her phone screen, that small blue GPS dot started moving again, slowly drifting away from the house and into the woods behind the neighborhood. Her chest tightened. The rain was falling harder now, tapping against the roof of her car, the sound mixing with the rising fear in her mind. She whispered to herself, "What is happening, Ryan?" Her voice cracked. She didn't know what to think anymore. Her husband's car was here, she had seen someone who looked like him inside the house, but his phone, the GPS tracker, was moving in a completely different direction. None of it made sense. Maya's instinct screamed at her to drive home, to forget all of it and confront him later. But something deep inside her wouldn't let her leave. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was anger. Or maybe it was that painful mix of love and suspicion that made her desperate to find the truth, no matter how much it hurt. She glanced at her wedding ring, the silver band that once meant trust, and suddenly felt tears sting her eyes. She wiped them quickly and started the car again. The narrow road leading to the woods was barely visible under the storm. Her headlights cut through the darkness in short bursts of pale light. Trees lined both sides, their wet branches bending low as if whispering secrets to each other. The GPS dot kept moving deeper into the woods, then stopped near an old trail marked with a rusty metal gate. Maya parked the car by the side of the road, leaving the engine running for warmth. She hesitated, staring at the rain-covered windshield, her breath fogging up the glass. "I shouldn't do this," she murmured. But even as she said it, she reached for her umbrella and stepped out into the night. The cold rain hit her immediately, soaking her jacket and hair. The air smelled of wet leaves and earth. She shivered but kept walking toward the gate, the glow from her phone lighting her path. The metal gate creaked when she pushed it open, the sound echoing into the forest like a warning. The trail ahead was muddy and uneven, littered with fallen branches. Every few steps, her shoes sank into the soft ground. She kept checking the GPS. Ryan's phone was just a few hundred meters ahead now, motionless again. Her pulse quickened as she walked deeper into the dark. Lightning flashed suddenly, lighting up the trees around her for a brief second, and in that flash, she thought she saw something, a shape, standing still near a tree ahead. Her breath caught. She froze, squinting into the darkness, but when the light faded, it was gone. Her heart hammered as she whispered, "Ryan? Is that you?" No reply. Only the sound of rain and wind moving through the trees. She walked faster, clutching the phone like a lifeline. Her feet slipped on the wet leaves, and she stumbled, catching herself on a branch. The GPS dot was right in front of her now. She looked up, and that's when she saw it, something lying on the ground near a large oak tree. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. It was a phone. Ryan's phone. The same case, the same cracked corner. It was lying face down, half covered in mud. Maya's hands shook as she picked it up. The screen was still glowing faintly, showing the map she had been following. She wiped the rain off it and stared. There was no sign of him anywhere. Just the phone, abandoned. Her stomach turned cold. She called his number immediately, and to her horror, the ringtone came from right there in her hand. Her heart dropped. "Oh my God," she whispered. She looked around, calling out, "Ryan! Ryan, where are you?" Her voice echoed, swallowed by the rain. No answer. The silence felt heavier now, pressing against her from all sides. The trees creaked softly in the wind, and somewhere in the distance, an owl cried out. She turned in circles, her flashlight moving across the trees, searching for any sign of movement. That's when she noticed something else, footprints. Faint, muddy footprints leading away from the spot where she found the phone. They were large, definitely Ryan's size, and they led deeper into the forest. Without thinking, Maya followed them. The rain made it hard to see clearly, and the forest floor was slippery. Branches brushed against her shoulders and face, and every crack of a twig made her flinch. She walked for several minutes until she reached a small clearing. There, through the mist and rain, she saw something strange, a small cabin. It looked old, maybe abandoned, with broken windows and a half-collapsed roof. But there was light coming from inside, a faint orange glow flickering through the cracks. Her breath caught again. Who would be in a place like this, in the middle of the night? Her heart pounded as she moved closer, staying low behind the trees. As she got near the cabin, she heard voices. 2 people. A man and a woman. The man's voice was low and tense. The woman sounded afraid. Maya's entire body froze when she recognized the man's voice. It was Ryan. Her eyes filled with confusion. How could that be? She had seen him at the other house earlier. And now he was here, in the middle of the woods, talking to someone who sounded scared. She crept closer until she could see through a gap in the wall. Inside, Ryan stood with his back to her, drenched from the rain, speaking to a young woman who looked terrified. The woman's hands were tied in front of her, and she was crying. Maya's mind spun. What was happening? Why was Ryan here with a woman tied up? Her body started shaking uncontrollably. She wanted to run, to scream, but her voice wouldn't come out. She could only watch in silent horror as Ryan knelt in front of the woman and said something she couldn't fully hear. The woman's voice trembled. Please. I told you everything. I won't say a word, I swear. Ryan's response was cold and quiet. It's too late for that. Maya's stomach twisted. She stepped back slowly, her heart racing faster than ever. The man she thought she knew, the husband who smiled at her every morning, was now someone she didn't recognize. Her hands shook so badly she almost dropped the phone again. Then, without warning, the door of the cabin swung open. Ryan stepped outside suddenly, scanning the dark forest. Maya froze behind a tree, barely breathing. The light from the cabin cast his face in sharp angles, his eyes cold and alert. He looked different, harder, colder. He held something in his hand, a small metallic object glinting in the light. Maya's pulse roared in her ears. He took a few steps away from the door, looking around carefully, then turned back inside. We need to move, she heard him say. Someone might have followed. Those words sent a wave of terror through her. He knew. He could sense something. She backed away slowly, her shoes slipping on the wet ground. She didn't care anymore if she made noise, she just needed to get out of there. Her breathing became fast and shallow as she turned and ran back the way she came. Branches whipped her arms and face, but she didn't stop. Her mind raced with panic. Who was that woman? What was Ryan doing with her? And what did he mean by too late? Nothing made sense, and the more she thought, the more horrifying it became. The man she loved might not just be lying, he might be dangerous. She reached her car, gasping for breath, and slammed the door shut. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely fit the key into the ignition. The headlights came on, cutting through the rain. For a moment, she just sat there, crying quietly, trying to understand what she had seen. Then she noticed something that made her blood run cold. There were footprints near her car door. Fresh ones. Someone had been standing there, waiting. Her heart stopped. She looked around, her eyes darting across the dark street. The rain blurred everything, but she thought she saw movement near the trees, a shadow, tall and still, watching her. Her hand flew to the door lock, clicking it shut. She pressed her foot on the gas, and the car lurched forward. The tires splashed through puddles as she sped away, her mind screaming in confusion and fear. She didn't stop driving until she reached the main road, her hands trembling on the steering wheel. She didn't know where to go, home didn't feel safe anymore. Finally, she pulled over near an all-night gas station, parked under the bright lights, and tried to calm down. Her reflection in the mirror scared her, her hair wet, eyes wide, face pale. She looked at Ryan's phone in her lap. It buzzed suddenly, making her jump. A message appeared on the screen. It was from an unknown number, and it read, "You shouldn't have followed him. Maya dropped the phone, her entire body frozen. She looked around the gas station, scanning every corner, every car. No one was there except a sleepy worker behind the counter. Her breathing came out in short, broken gasps. She picked up the phone again, but the message was gone, deleted, as if it had never been sent. Her mind felt heavy and dizzy. What had she stepped into? What was Ryan hiding? And how did whoever sent that message know she had followed him? The questions circled her like shadows in the rain. She closed her eyes, her heart aching with fear and betrayal. She realized this was no longer about love or trust, it was about survival. And as lightning flashed outside, Maya whispered to herself, I have to find out the truth, before it's too late. But she didn't know that the truth waiting for her would be far darker than she could ever imagine. Maya didn't sleep that night. She sat inside her car near the gas station until the sky turned pale with early morning light. Her body was tired, but her mind wouldn't stop running. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ryan's face in that cabin, the terrified woman, the phone in the mud, and that message, you shouldn't have followed him. The words kept echoing in her head like a warning she couldn't escape. The world outside her windshield looked calm now, but inside her heart, there was a storm that refused to settle. When the sun finally rose, Maya drove home slowly. Her house looked exactly the same, quiet, peaceful, ordinary. The front porch light was still on, just as she had left it. But to her, nothing about it felt safe anymore. As she unlocked the door and stepped inside, a strange chill ran down her spine. The silence felt unnatural, almost hollow. She stood still for a moment, listening. Then she noticed something. Ryan's shoes were by the door. His jacket hung neatly on the rack. He was home. Maya's heart skipped a beat. She froze, not knowing what to do. Slowly, she walked toward the living room. And there he was, Ryan, sitting calmly on the couch, scrolling through his phone like nothing had happened. He looked up when he heard her footsteps and smiled. Hey, babe. You're up early. I got home late last night. Her breath caught. For a second, she couldn't speak. Her voice trembled when she finally managed to ask, You got home late? Ryan nodded casually. Yeah, after midnight. I didn't want to wake you. I crashed on the couch. He laughed lightly, as if everything was normal. But Maya couldn't move. The sight of him, so calm, so normal, made her skin crawl. Her mind screamed that something was terribly wrong. She wanted to ask where he had been, why his phone was in the woods, why she had seen him with another woman, but fear held her back. If he could stand in front of her and lie so easily, what else was he capable of? Instead, she forced a small, fake smile. Oh, okay. You must be tired, she said softly, pretending to believe him. Inside, her heart was breaking. Ryan nodded, yawning. Yeah, long night. I'll shower and head to work soon. He got up and went toward the bedroom. Maya stood there, frozen, her eyes following him until he disappeared down the hall. The moment he was gone, she felt her knees weaken. She sat down slowly on the couch, tears blurring her vision. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, making her jump. It was a notification from the GPS app. Ryan's phone was still offline. That meant the one she found in the woods was his real phone. The one he was holding right now must be a different one. A second phone. Maya's blood ran cold. Why would her husband need two phones? She took a deep breath, wiping her tears. She knew she had to stay calm, act normal, and find out more. After Ryan left for work a few minutes later, she waited until his car was out of sight. Then she went into his study, a small room he usually kept locked. She knew where he hid the spare key, taped under a drawer in his office table. Her hands trembled as she turned the key in the lock. The door creaked open. The room smelled faintly of cologne and paper. On the desk were his files, some old receipts, and a laptop. She sat down and pressed the power button. It was password protected. She guessed it might be the same password he used for his phone. After 3 tries, it opened. Her heart raced. The desktop looked normal: work documents, photos, reports. But one folder caught her eye. It was named Client Files, Private. She clicked it open. Inside were several subfolders with strange names: Project E7, Arcase, Phoenix, and one called Maya. Her stomach dropped when she saw her own name there. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside were photos of her, taken secretly. Some were old, from years ago. But others were recent, like ones of her leaving for her evening classes, or sitting in a cafe last week. There were also voice notes, recordings of her phone calls. Her hands shook violently. "Oh my God," she whispered. Her breathing quickened as she clicked through the other folders. Each one contained similar files, photos, documents, even IDs of different people. One folder had pictures of the same woman she had seen tied up in the cabin. Her name was written in one of the files: Emily Carter. Maya's mind spun. Who were these people? What was Ryan doing with their information? The more she looked, the worse it got. One document labeled Phoenix Operation Phase 2 had lists of names and strange notes beside them, dates, locations, and something that looked like payment records. Then she opened a video file dated just 2 nights ago. The footage was shaky, recorded on a phone. It showed Ryan meeting with 2 men in a dark parking lot. One of the men handed him a black bag. Ryan took it and said, "Don't worry. She won't be a problem anymore." The video ended there. Maya felt like she couldn't breathe. Tears filled her eyes as the full horror of it began to sink in. This wasn't just a lie. This was something darker. Ryan wasn't just cheating. He was involved in something criminal, something dangerous. Her fingers moved fast as she copied everything she could onto a flash drive from the drawer. She knew she couldn't confront him yet. She needed proof, and she needed help. Just as she was about to close the laptop, a sound from behind made her freeze. The door creaked slightly. She turned slowly, and there he was. Ryan stood in the doorway, his face unreadable. "What are you doing in my office?" he asked quietly. His tone was calm, but his eyes were cold. Maya's heart stopped. She forced a shaky smile. "I was just looking for that receipt for the car service," she said, trying to sound casual. Ryan stared at her for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "You should have asked me," he said softly. "You know I don't like anyone in here." Her throat went dry. She nodded quickly. "Sorry, I didn't mean to." Before she could finish, Ryan walked closer, stopping just a few feet away. "You didn't touch anything, did you?" he asked. His tone was light, but the question felt heavy, like a threat wrapped in a smile. Maya shook her head quickly. "No, of course not. I just checked the drawer." He studied her face for a few seconds longer, then sighed. "All right," he said, his voice soft again. "Just stay out of my office, okay?" He leaned forward and kissed her forehead lightly before leaving the room. The moment he was gone, Maya collapsed in the chair, shaking. She could still feel his eyes on her, the fake warmth in his touch. She wanted to scream, but fear held her silent. That evening, Ryan acted normal again, talked about work, laughed during dinner, even kissed her goodnight. But Maya couldn't look at him without feeling sick. She waited until he fell asleep, then quietly got out of bed, holding the flash drive tight in her hand. She went to the living room, sat in the dark, and stared at it. It held everything: the truth, the proof, the secret he had tried to hide. But as she sat there, the silence of the house was broken by a faint noise. A beep. She turned toward the sound. It was her phone, lighting up on the table. Another unknown message had arrived. This one said, "You took the files. Now he knows. Maya's blood turned to ice. She looked toward the hallway, toward the bedroom where Ryan was sleeping, or at least she thought he was. Then she heard it, the sound of footsteps. Slow, steady, coming closer. Her heart began to race violently. She grabbed her phone and the flash drive, her mind spinning. She didn't know what to do, only that she had to get out. She rushed toward the back door quietly, her hands trembling as she unlocked it. She could hear the floor creaking behind her. She turned the handle, pushed the door open, and stepped into the cold night air. Rain had started again, soft but steady. She didn't look back. She ran to her car, started it, and drove away as fast as she could, her tears mixing with the rain on her cheeks. As she sped down the empty streets, she looked at her rearview mirror. For a moment, she thought she saw headlights following her, but when she turned the next corner, they were gone. She didn't stop until she reached a quiet motel outside town. Inside her car, she finally let herself cry. Everything she had believed about her husband, his kindness, his job, their marriage, had been a lie. But one thought kept her from completely breaking down: if he knows I took the files, he won't stop until he finds me. And as lightning flashed across the sky, Maya realized one terrifying truth: she was now running not from her husband, but from the monster she had married. The motel room was small, quiet, and smelled faintly of dust and old carpet. The yellow lamp on the bedside table flickered slightly as Maya sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the flash drive in her hand. Her body trembled with exhaustion, but her mind refused to rest. Every few seconds, she checked the window, afraid she might see Ryan's car pull into the parking lot. She had locked the door 3 times, but still, she didn't feel safe. Her phone lay beside her, screen dark. She didn't dare turn it on again, not after that last message. Whoever was sending those texts knew everything. They knew where she was, what she had done, maybe even who she was running from. She took a deep breath and whispered to herself, "You can't give up now. You need to find out the truth." The flash drive in her hand was her only clue. She turned on her laptop and plugged it in. The files loaded slowly, her heart thudding with each passing second. There were folders, dozens of them. But one stood out. It was labeled Epsilon Group. Maya clicked on it, her eyes scanning the contents. There were photos, scanned documents, and long lists of names. As she opened the first file, a photo appeared. It showed Ryan standing with several men in suits. Their faces were serious, their eyes cold. The background looked like a warehouse. Next to each man was a name, and under Ryan's name, it said, Field Operator, Clearance Level 4. Her stomach turned. Field Operator? What did that even mean? She scrolled down to the next page. It was a report describing something called Epsilon Transfer Program. The more she read, the more confused and terrified she became. It talked about subjects, data extractions, and asset elimination. It wasn't business, it sounded like some kind of secret operation. Then she opened a second folder, Emily Carter. The same woman she had seen tied up in the cabin. There were reports about her too. The first few pages described her as a former analyst who leaked classified data. The last report was short, target neutralized. File closed. Maya's blood ran cold. Neutralized. That word screamed danger. Was that what Ryan meant when he said, "She won't be a problem anymore"? Her breathing became uneven as she scrolled through the last few files. Then she froze. There was another document, labeled Maya D. Her own name. She clicked it open. The report was short and unfinished, but it made her heart stop. Subject under observation. Possible breach risk. Termination pending verification. Her hands began to shake violently. Termination pending verification. That meant they were planning to eliminate her. Her. His own wife. She dropped the laptop onto the bed, her whole body trembling. Tears welled up in her eyes. Everything suddenly made sense, the strange calls, the nights he said he was working late, the second phone, the fake smiles. Ryan wasn't just hiding secrets. He was part of something dangerous, something that would kill to stay hidden. And now she was on their list. Maya wiped her tears and stood up, pacing the small room. She couldn't go to the police, not yet. If Ryan had connections, they might be watching her already. She needed to find someone outside this mess, someone she could trust. She thought for a moment, then remembered a name, Detective Alan Brooks. He was an old friend of her brother's, a retired police officer who had helped them years ago when their father passed away. She hadn't spoken to him in a long time, but maybe, just maybe, he could help. She found his number saved in her contacts and hesitated before calling. The line rang twice before a deep, tired voice answered. "Hello? Detective Brooks? It's Maya." "Maya Daniels," she said, her voice trembling. There was a short pause. "Maya? It's been a while. Are you okay? You sound shaken." I don't know how to explain," she whispered. "I need help. Please. I think my husband is involved in something dangerous. And I think they're after me." The line went quiet for a second, then his voice turned serious. "Where are you right now?" "I'm at the Maplewood Motel, room 12, she said softly. "Stay there," he replied firmly. "Lock the doors and don't open for anyone until I get there. I'll be there in 30 minutes. She nodded quickly. "Thank you," she whispered. The call ended, and she locked the door again, moving the small table in front of it. Her heart raced as she waited, staring at the window every few seconds. Time moved slowly, each minute felt like an hour. After about half an hour, she heard the sound of a car outside. Headlights swept across the thin motel curtains. Her heart leapt. She walked slowly toward the door, peeking through the small gap. It was a dark sedan. A man stepped out, wearing a gray jacket. She recognized his face immediately. Detective Brooks. She opened the door just enough for him to step inside, then quickly locked it again. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice shaking. He looked around the room, frowning. "You said your husband's involved in something dangerous. Tell me everything." Maya sat down and started explaining about Ryan's late-night lie, the GPS, the cabin, the files, and the message. Brooks listened quietly, his face growing darker with every detail. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair, rubbing his chin. "Epsilon Group," he repeated. "I've heard that name before. A private intelligence network. Very secretive. They've been linked to disappearances, blackmail, even assassinations. If Ryan's really part of them, you're in serious danger." Maya swallowed hard. "Then what do I do?" "They know I took the files." Brooks thought for a moment, then said, "You need to disappear for a while. Leave town. I'll make some calls, find a safe place for you. And I'll see what I can dig up about your husband's background." Maya nodded slowly, tears filling her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. He gave her a reassuring look. "We'll get through this. But you can't trust anyone, understand? Not even the police. If Epsilon has people inside, you could be exposed." She nodded again. He stood up and walked toward the door. "I'll be back soon. Stay here and keep the lights off." Maya watched him leave, her heart slightly calmer. For the first time in days, she felt a small spark of hope. She sat back on the bed, holding the flash drive tightly in her hand. Maybe she had finally found someone who could help. But her relief didn't last long. An hour later, she heard the sound of a car returning. She jumped up, peeking through the curtains. The same gray sedan was back, but this time, there was another car behind it. A black SUV. Her chest tightened. She stepped back, her breathing quickening. The doors of the SUV opened, and two men stepped out. They weren't in uniforms. They looked professional, serious, like bodyguards. One of them went to Brooks's car, the other walked toward the motel. Maya's pulse raced. She turned off the light and backed into the corner. Then she heard it, 3 soft knocks on the door. "Maya," a voice said calmly. It was Brooks. "It's me." "Open the door. We need to leave. Now." She hesitated. Something about his voice sounded different, colder, flatter. Her instinct screamed that something was wrong. She whispered through the door, "Where are we going?" He paused for a moment before replying, "To a safe house. Just open the door." Her hand hovered over the lock, shaking. Then she looked at the window. The 2 men from the SUV were standing near it, watching silently. One of them spoke into a small earpiece. Her heart stopped. Without another thought, she grabbed her phone, the flash drive, and ran into the bathroom. She locked the door just as the front door handle turned. "Maya," Brooks's voice called again, harder this time. "Open it. Now." Tears streamed down her face as she whispered to herself, "He's with them, he's with them." The door outside rattled violently. She heard footsteps, a crash, and the sound of the table being pushed aside. Someone was breaking in. She looked around desperately. The small bathroom window was her only way out. She climbed onto the sink, opened the window, and squeezed through. The rain hit her face as she landed behind the motel, the ground wet and muddy. She didn't stop. She ran into the darkness, her heart pounding so hard it felt like it would burst. Behind her, she heard shouts. Flashlights cut through the night, moving fast. Someone yelled her name. She ran faster, her lungs burning, her legs weak, but she didn't stop. As she reached the edge of the motel property, she ducked behind a dumpster, gasping for air. The lights passed by, searching. She covered her mouth, trying to stay quiet. Then, suddenly, her phone buzzed in her pocket. The screen lit up with a new message, from an unknown number. "Run to the train station. Don't trust Brooks. Don't go home." Her eyes widened. Her hands trembled as she stared at the message. Whoever was sending them, they knew everything. But were they helping her, or leading her into another trap? She didn't know. But one thing was certain, if she stayed here, she'd be caught. Maya stood up slowly, clutching the flash drive close to her chest. The night was cold, the rain steady, but she pushed forward toward the faint lights of the city in the distance. She had no one left to trust. No home. No safety. Only questions, fear, and a small piece of truth that people were willing to kill for. And as thunder rolled in the distance, Maya whispered to herself, "Whatever this is, I'm going to find out. I have to." But deep inside, she knew that the worst part of her nightmare was still waiting ahead. The rain fell harder as Maya reached the old train station on the edge of town. The streets were almost empty, except for the dim lights of passing cars and the occasional shadow of a late-night traveler. Her clothes were soaked, her hair clung to her face, and every step felt heavier than the last. She had been running for nearly an hour, her heart racing the whole time. Her lungs burned, but she didn't dare stop. The message still glowed on her phone screen. "Run to the train station. Don't trust Brooks. Don't go home." She didn't know who had sent it, but whoever they were, they had just saved her life. If she had opened that motel door, she might not be alive right now. Maya slowed as she entered the station. The place was old, the ceiling cracked, the walls damp. A few people sat on benches, waiting for late trains, wrapped in coats and scarves. The flickering lights above made the whole place look like something out of a nightmare. She walked to a corner near the ticket machines and sat down, her hands shaking. She checked her surroundings, no sign of Ryan, no sign of Brooks, no black SUVs. For the first time that night, she let out a deep breath. But peace didn't last long. Her phone buzzed again. Another message appeared. Don't panic. I'm here. Go to platform 3. I'll explain everything. Maya froze. Her eyes darted toward the platform signs. Platform 3 was at the far end, down a dark hallway. Her gut twisted. It could be a trap, but what choice did she have? Whoever this person was, they knew about Ryan, about Brooks, about everything. She took a deep breath, pulled up her hood, and walked toward platform 3. The hall was quiet except for the echo of her footsteps. The lights flickered above her, and water dripped from the ceiling. She clutched the flash drive tightly in her pocket. When she stepped onto the platform, she saw a figure standing at the far end, tall, wearing a black coat, face hidden under a hood. The person didn't move, just watched her silently as she approached. Maya stopped a few feet away, her voice shaking. Who are you? The figure lifted their head slowly. It was a man, young, maybe early 30s, with tired eyes and a thin scar across his jaw. His voice was calm, quiet. My name is Daniel. I used to work with your husband. Maya's stomach dropped. You, what? He nodded. We were part of the same program. Epsilon Group. But I left. Or tried to. His eyes darted around, checking the shadows. You shouldn't have come here. They're tracking you. She stepped back slightly, her heart pounding. Then why did you tell me to come? Because you need to understand what you've stepped into, he said firmly. Ryan isn't who you think he is. He's been living 2 lives. The man you married is only half of what he really is. Maya felt her throat tighten. What do you mean? Daniel looked down for a moment, then said, he's not just part of Epsilon. He's one of their handlers. His job is to keep assets, people like me, under control. When someone tries to leave, he's sent to eliminate them. Maya's heart froze. Eliminate them? Daniel nodded grimly. You saw Emily Carter, didn't you? She stared at him in shock. How do you know about her? Because she was one of us, he said. She tried to expose what Epsilon was doing. She trusted Ryan. And he killed her. Maya felt the air leave her lungs. Her knees went weak. No, that can't be true. Daniel looked her straight in the eye. You've seen the reports. You know what those words mean, target neutralized. He's done it before. And when they found out you took the files, you became the next target. Tears filled her eyes. Her whole world felt like it was collapsing. He was going to kill me? Daniel's voice softened. Yes. But I won't let that happen. I owe Emily that much. She stared at him, confused. Why help me? You don't even know me. He hesitated before replying. Because Ryan killed my sister too. The words hit Maya like a knife. She took a step back, covering her mouth. Daniel's eyes were full of quiet pain. Her name was Lila. She worked for Epsilon as a data analyst. She found something she wasn't supposed to. Ryan was sent to handle it. He told me it was an accident. But I found her files. I know what he did. Maya didn't know what to say. The silence between them was heavy, broken only by the faint sound of rain outside. Finally, she whispered, what is Epsilon really doing? What are they hiding? Daniel looked around before speaking quietly. They're not just collecting information. They're controlling people, politicians, businessmen, scientists. They find secrets and use them to build power. Anyone who refuses to cooperate disappears. Your husband manages some of their biggest operations. Maya's mind spun. The man she loved wasn't just lying to her, he was part of something monstrous. Daniel took a deep breath. I have a place where you'll be safe for now. But we can't stay here. They might already know we've met. Maya hesitated, glancing at the dark hallway behind her. How do I know I can trust you? He nodded slowly. You don't. But if I wanted to hurt you, I would have let Brooks find you. She looked into his eyes. There was fear there, but also sincerity. Finally, she nodded. Okay. Let's go. They left through the side exit, moving quickly through the rain-soaked streets. The city lights flickered in the puddles as they walked, keeping to the shadows. Daniel led her through narrow alleys and down a set of stairs that opened into an underground passage. It smelled of rust and damp concrete. This used to be an old subway tunnel, he said quietly. No one comes here anymore. They walked in silence for several minutes before stopping in a small chamber filled with old crates and a flickering lantern. Daniel checked his watch, then turned to her. We'll rest here for an hour. Then we move again. Maya sat down, exhausted. Her body ached, her mind spinning with everything she'd learned. Ryan wasn't just cheating or lying, he was part of something far darker. After a long silence, she asked, if Epsilon's so powerful, how can we stop them? Daniel looked at her seriously. The flash drive you have, it's not just files. It's evidence. It connects Epsilon to government contracts, illegal surveillance, assassinations. If we can get it to the right people, it could destroy them. She nodded slowly, gripping the flash drive in her pocket. Then we do it. We end this. Daniel smiled faintly, a tired kind of smile. You're braver than most people I've met. Before Maya could reply, the faint echo of footsteps reached their ears. They both froze. Daniel grabbed her hand and pulled her behind a crate, motioning for silence. The footsteps grew louder, heavy, deliberate. Maya held her breath, every muscle in her body tense. A beam of light cut through the darkness, sweeping across the tunnel walls. Voices followed. Check every corner, a man said. Daniel whispered, they found us. Her heart raced. What do we do? He looked around, eyes darting. There's a maintenance hatch at the end of the tunnel. We can use it to get to the surface. They moved quietly, keeping to the shadows as the flashlight beams grew closer. The tunnel echoed with the sound of boots and murmured orders. Maya could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. When they reached the end, Daniel pushed open the rusted hatch. It screeched loudly, and immediately a voice shouted, "They're here." Go! Daniel yelled, helping Maya climb through the opening. She pulled herself out into the rain, gasping for air. Behind her, Daniel fired 2 quick shots from a small pistol, forcing their pursuers to take cover. Run, he shouted. Maya ran, her feet splashing through puddles as gunfire echoed behind her. She didn't look back. She could hear Daniel shouting, the sounds of struggle, and then, silence. She stopped in the middle of the street, turning around. Daniel, she cried out. But there was no answer. The tunnel entrance was dark. No movement. No sound. Only the cold rain falling harder now. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "Please be alive." Her phone buzzed again. A new message appeared. He's gone. Keep moving. They know where you are. Maya stared at the screen, trembling. She looked around the empty street, realizing once again, someone was always watching her. She didn't know who the sender was. She didn't know if Daniel was dead or alive. But she knew one thing for certain. She was running out of time. The rain had slowed by dawn, leaving the streets slick and shining under the pale light of morning. Maya walked fast, her hood pulled up, her steps echoing faintly in the quiet city. Her clothes were damp and heavy, her face pale from exhaustion. She hadn't slept, hadn't eaten. Every sound made her flinch. Every passing car made her heart jump. She had lost Daniel. She didn't know if he was dead or captured, but his warning echoed in her head like a heartbeat, "They're tracking you." And the message that came right after, "He's gone. Keep moving. They know where you are," still glowed on her phone screen like a curse. Maya didn't know who was sending these messages, but whoever it was, they were always one step ahead, and they knew everything. She turned down an alley, checking behind her before ducking into an old cafe that had just opened. The place smelled like coffee and wet wood. A few early customers sat quietly at tables, sipping from mugs and staring at their phones. She took a seat near the back, facing the window. Her reflection looked like that of a stranger, tired eyes, hair tangled, fear in every line of her face. She took a deep breath, whispering to herself, "You can't fall apart now. You have to finish this." Her phone buzzed again. A new message appeared. "Find the blue door behind Central Library. Go alone." Her heart skipped. The sender wasn't explaining anything, just giving instructions. Still, she didn't have another choice. She quickly finished the small cup of coffee she'd ordered, left some money on the table, and walked back into the street. The Central Library was a few blocks away, an old gray building surrounded by trees. As she got closer, she noticed how quiet the area was. There were no guards, no cameras visible, no people passing by. The air felt too still. She walked around to the back, where the narrow service road curved behind the main structure. Her heart raced as she searched the walls until she found it, a small, worn blue door, half hidden by ivy and grime. Her fingers trembled as she knocked once, then twice. There was silence for a moment. Then a faint click. The door opened slowly. A man stood inside, wearing dark jeans and a gray hoodie. His face was calm but alert, his eyes sharp. "You came," he said simply. Maya hesitated. "Are you the one sending the messages?" He nodded slightly. "My name is Alex. I've been trying to keep you alive." She stepped inside carefully, still uncertain. The room was dim, filled with old computer monitors and wires. Maps covered one wall, dotted with red pins and notes. It looked more like a secret base than anything else. Alex closed the door behind her and locked it. "You shouldn't have trusted Brooks," he said quietly. "He's been working for Epsilon for years. They've been using him to track people who escape." Maya nodded slowly, her throat tight. "I figured that out. But Daniel, they got him." Alex's jaw tightened. "I know. I tried to warn you in time." She took a deep breath. "Who are you really, Alex? Why are you helping me?" He walked over to the table, where a laptop screen showed a map of the city. "Because I used to work for them too," he said. "I was a systems analyst for Epsilon's data control division. I designed the tracking programs they used to monitor their agents and their targets." Maya's eyes widened. "You helped them spy on people?" He looked down, ashamed. "At first, I didn't know what they were really doing. I thought it was just data security. But when I found out they were using my work to eliminate people, I tried to shut it down." He sighed. "They sent Ryan after me too." Maya froze. "Ryan?" He nodded. "He didn't kill me. He couldn't. We used to be close friends. So he faked my death and told them I was gone." Her mind raced. "So you know what he's really doing?" "Yes," Alex said quietly. "And it's worse than you think." He turned his laptop around. On the screen was a document filled with numbers, codes, and names. Epsilon isn't just collecting secrets. They're building something called Project Helix. It's a global surveillance network, one that can predict behavior, influence decisions, even destroy reputations with fake evidence. They're planning to control entire governments without anyone realizing it. Maya stared at the screen, her voice trembling. And Ryan? Ryan is one of their main field commanders, Alex said. He's in charge of securing the last piece of the system, the human data chain. And you, Maya, you stumbled right into it. She blinked, confused. Human data chain? What does that mean? Alex hesitated. Epsilon isn't just tracking people online. They're using implants, microscopic devices, hidden in medical shipments and consumer electronics. Once inside the body, they transmit real-time biometric and emotional data. That's how they predict and manipulate behavior. Maya's stomach turned. That's insane. It's real, Alex said firmly. And Ryan's been overseeing its deployment. The flash drive you tip contains the access keys to the main system, the only thing that can prove what Epsilon is doing. Maya reached into her pocket, pulling out the small device. This? Alex nodded. Yes. That's why they'll never stop hunting you. For a long moment, Maya just stared at the flash drive. Something so small, yet powerful enough to expose everything. Then a thought hit her, sharp, cold. If Ryan is one of them, why fake Alex's death? Why let him live? Alex's face tightened. Because he needed me. He wanted to build a backdoor into the system, something only he could control. Her breath caught. You mean he's trying to control Epsilon? Exactly, Alex said. Ryan's not loyal to them anymore. He's building his own version of Helix, one he can use for himself. He's dangerous, Maya. More dangerous than the organization that created him. Maya felt dizzy. The man she once loved was now at the center of a plan to control the world. The thought made her chest tighten with anger and fear. So what do we do? She asked quietly. Alex pointed at the laptop. There's a journalist named Laura Trent. She's been investigating Epsilon for years. She's clean, careful, and she has contacts in major news networks. If we can get her the flash drive, she can expose everything. Maya nodded slowly. Where is she? She's in another city, he replied. We can reach her by train, but it won't be easy. They'll have people watching the stations now. Maya looked down, her hands trembling slightly. I can't believe this is happening. I thought my husband was just lying about working late. I never imagined this. Alex gave her a small, sympathetic smile. You're stronger than you think. You've survived what most wouldn't. She looked up at him, a spark of determination in her tired eyes. Then let's finish this. He nodded, packing up a small bag with equipment. We leave tonight. But just as he said that, one of the monitors flickered. The image shifted, a live security feed from outside the library. Maya froze. 2 black SUVs had just pulled up at the back gate. Armed men stepped out, scanning the area. Alex's face went pale. They found us. Maya's heart pounded. How? He looked at the laptop screen, a small blinking light showed a signal. They tracked your phone. Maya's hand flew to her pocket. She pulled out her phone, staring at it in horror. But I didn't. Alex grabbed it, smashed it against the wall, and shouted, We have to move now. The sound of boots echoed outside the door. Shadows moved against the thin light under the doorway. Maya's breath came fast, fear rising again like fire in her chest. Alex pulled her toward a narrow passage behind the shelves. There's an old tunnel that leads to the street. Go! They moved fast, the noise of breaking wood and shouting voices behind them. The passage was dark and cold, their footsteps echoing against the stone floor. Alex led the way, flashlight shaking in his hand. "Keep going straight," he said. But before they reached the exit, gunfire erupted from behind. The sound was deafening. Maya screamed, ducking low as sparks flew off the tunnel walls. Alex turned back, firing once, twice, before shouting, "Run, Maya! Don't stop!" She ran, the flash drive clutched tightly in her hand. Her heart pounded so hard it hurt. The tunnel opened up ahead, a faint square of light. She sprinted toward it, the cold air rushing in her face. She reached the exit, stumbled out into the street, and turned back. Just in time to see Alex fall. He dropped to the ground, blood spreading across his shoulder as one of the armed men dragged him back into the shadows. Their eyes met for a second, his full of pain but also urgency. He mouthed one word before disappearing into the darkness. "Run." Maya stood frozen for half a second, tears mixing with the rain. Then she turned and ran again, into the empty streets, the sirens rising in the distance, her world collapsing around her. Behind her, the blue door slammed shut. And somewhere far away, Ryan looked at his own screen, watching her GPS dot moving through the streets. A faint smile crossed his lips. "She's getting closer," he whispered. "Just where I want her to be." Maya couldn't sleep that night. The house was silent, yet her mind screamed with confusion and fear. The documents, the burner phone, the mysterious warehouse, everything felt like pieces of a puzzle that didn't belong to her life. She sat on the couch, hugging her knees, staring at the front door, waiting for her husband, Ryan, to come home. But the clock kept ticking, and the night grew colder. At 2 a.m., she finally heard the sound of a car engine. Her heart began to race. The headlights flashed through the window, and the front door opened slowly. Ryan stepped inside, his face pale, eyes tired, and his shirt slightly stained with something dark, something that looked like dried blood. Maya's breath caught. "Ryan," she whispered. "Where were you?" He froze, his eyes locking on her. "Maya, why are you awake?" he asked softly, avoiding her question. "I saw your GPS," she said, her voice trembling. "I went to that place. The warehouse. I saw what was inside. Tell me the truth, Ryan. What are you doing there?" Ryan dropped his bag and ran his hands through his hair. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then he sighed deeply, looking more broken than she had ever seen him. "Maya, I never wanted you to find out like this." She stood up, anger and fear twisting together inside her. "Find out what? That you're lying to me? That you sneak out at night to some secret place full of strange boxes and old computers?" He looked at her with eyes full of sadness. "It's not what you think," he said quietly. "Then tell me what it is," she shouted. "Because right now, I don't even know who you are." Ryan sat down, burying his face in his hands. "I've been part of something secret," he began. "Before we met, I worked for a private intelligence unit. It wasn't exactly legal, but it wasn't completely wrong either. We investigated people who were off the grid, criminals, missing persons, corporate spies. A few years ago, I walked away from it all. Or at least, I tried to." Maya's heart pounded. "So why now? Why are you going back there?" "Because they found me again," he whispered. "Someone from my old team went missing 2 weeks ago. They left me a message, and I had to find out what happened." Maya shook her head, not believing him. "Then why lie? Why tell me you were working late?" He looked up, his eyes full of guilt. "Because I didn't want to drag you into it. The less you knew, the safer you were." She took a step back. "Safe? You call this safe? You've been sneaking out, hiding things from me, bringing danger to our home." Ryan stood, his voice low and tense. "You don't understand, Maya. This isn't about work or lies, it's about survival. The people I used to work with, they're being hunted. One by one. Maya's lips trembled. By who? I don't know yet, he said. But I'm getting close. She turned away, her body shaking. Do you hear yourself? You sound insane, Ryan. You expect me to believe you're being hunted by some invisible force? I can prove it, he said. He pulled out his phone, opened a hidden app, and showed her a list of names. Some were marked in red. These are people from my old team, he said. Every one of them is either dead or missing. Except me. Maya stared at the screen, her heart dropping as she saw pictures attached to each name. Normal-looking people, men and women smiling in old photos, but each one now marked with a red cross. What does this mean? She whispered. Ryan's voice cracked. It means I'm next, Maya. And if they find out you know anything, you'll be next too. The room went silent except for the sound of rain hitting the window. Maya's mind spun. Everything she thought she knew about her husband was crumbling. She had spent weeks thinking he might be cheating, but the truth was something far darker. I didn't want to believe it either, Ryan said softly. But when I went to that warehouse tonight, I found something that confirmed it. What did you find? She asked, barely breathing. He hesitated. A file. About me. About us. Her eyes widened. Us? Ryan nodded. They've been watching me for months. Tracking my movements, listening to our conversations. They know where we live, where you work, even your favorite cafe. Maya felt her knees weaken. She sat down slowly. Why? Why would anyone do that? Because I know something, Ryan said, his voice low. Something I wasn't supposed to remember. Maya frowned. What do you mean? He looked at her for a long time, his eyes haunted. Years ago, my team discovered something during a mission. A secret project the government was trying to bury. We were told to destroy all evidence, but I couldn't. I kept a copy. And now, they want it back. The air in the room felt heavy, like the walls were closing in. Maya tried to speak, but no words came. She realized she wasn't just living with a man hiding an affair, she was living with a man hiding from something powerful and dangerous. Ryan, she said finally, her voice breaking. You need to go to the police. He shook his head. They're part of it, Maya. You can't trust anyone. She stood up, tears filling her eyes. So what do we do? Just sit here and wait for them to come for us? Ryan looked at her, his face hardening. No. We run. Run? Yes, he said. I have a safe place. Somewhere no one can find us. But we need to leave tonight. Maya looked around their home, the pictures on the wall, the couch they bought together, the memories of laughter and love, and her chest ached. You're asking me to leave everything, she whispered. I'm asking you to stay alive, he replied quietly. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. Maya felt her heart pounding as she realized he was serious. He started packing quickly, throwing clothes, documents, and the burner phone into a small bag. But then the sound came, a sharp knock at the door. Ryan froze. Maya's eyes widened. Another knock. Louder this time. Ryan mouthed, "Don't move." He crept toward the window and peeked outside. His face turned pale. Who is it? Maya whispered. Ryan turned slowly toward her, his voice barely audible. They found us. Maya's breath caught in her throat. The knocks became pounding now, echoing through the house like a warning. Ryan grabbed her hand. We have to go. Now. He led her toward the back door, but before they could open it, a shadow passed the window, someone was already there. Maya's pulse raced as the doorknob rattled. Then came a voice. Cold. Calm. Ryan, we need to talk. Her husband's grip on her hand tightened. Maya looked at him, terrified. Who are they? He didn't answer. His eyes just told her everything. This wasn't over. Not even close. And as the lights outside their house flickered and footsteps surrounded them, Maya realized the truth she had been chasing was much worse than she ever imagined. Because now, the truth was coming for them. The pounding on the door grew louder, echoing through the dark, silent house. Every hit sounded like a drumbeat of doom. Maya could barely breathe. Her body was frozen between fear and disbelief. Ryan's grip on her hand was so tight it hurt, but she didn't pull away. Her heart was racing so fast she could hear it in her ears. Ryan, she whispered. What do we do? He didn't answer. His eyes darted between the door and the hallway window, his face pale, his jaw tight. We have to move, he said softly. Through the back. Don't make a sound. Maya followed him quietly, her bare feet cold against the floor. She could see shadows moving outside, the shape of 2, maybe 3 people. They weren't the police. She could feel it in her gut. These people moved like hunters. Ryan opened the back door slowly. The rain had stopped, but the air was thick and heavy. The garden behind their house was dark, only the faint orange glow from the streetlights cut through the night. Stay low, he whispered. They slipped out, closing the door behind them without a sound. Maya's heart pounded as they crept past the bushes. She could still hear the front door rattling behind them, the unknown men trying to force their way in. They reached the fence. Ryan pushed it open just enough for Maya to squeeze through. She stumbled slightly, catching herself on the wet grass. Ryan followed, closing it quietly behind them. Where are we going? Maya whispered. To the car, he said, his voice quick and tense. It's parked down the street. If we can reach it, we'll be okay. But before they could take 2 steps, a deep voice cut through the darkness. Going somewhere, Ryan? Maya froze. The voice came from the shadows ahead. A tall man stepped forward, dressed in black, his face half covered by a hood. 2 others appeared beside him. They weren't random strangers, they were waiting for them. Ryan pushed Maya slightly behind him. You don't have to do this, he said, his tone calm but sharp. The man chuckled softly. Oh, we do. You have something that doesn't belong to you. Ryan's jaw tightened. You'll never find it. The man tilted his head. Maybe. But we'll start with your wife, then see how stubborn you are. Maya's stomach twisted with fear. Ryan stepped forward, his hand reaching into his jacket. Don't, the man shouted. But Ryan was faster. He pulled out a small metal device and threw it to the ground. A bright flash of white light exploded between them. Maya covered her eyes as everything went white. When her vision returned, Ryan was pulling her by the arm. Run, he shouted. They sprinted down the street. Behind them, the men yelled, but the flash had disoriented them. Maya's lungs burned, her heart felt like it would burst. The street seemed endless, every sound too loud, every shadow too close. They reached the car, a black sedan parked under a broken streetlight. Ryan unlocked it and shoved her inside. He jumped in, started the engine, and slammed the accelerator. The tires screeched as the car tore through the rain-soaked road. Ryan! Maya cried, gasping for breath. Who are they? What do they want? He didn't look at her. They work for the same people I used to. But not everyone there is loyal anymore. Some want to sell what we found. What did you find? She asked desperately. He glanced at her, his eyes dark. Evidence. A list of names. People who were paid to make others disappear. Journalists. Whistleblowers. Even agents from our own side. Maya's blood ran cold. You mean, they kill people? Ryan nodded slowly. And I have proof. Her mind raced, trying to understand everything that was happening. The GPS tracking, the warehouse, the files, it all made sense now. They think I still have the drive, he said. But I hid it. Somewhere no one will ever look. Where? She asked. He hesitated. I can't tell you. Not yet. If you know, they'll come for you. Ryan, they already are, she cried. He looked at her, guilt filling his eyes. I'm sorry, Maya. I should have told you everything sooner. I just wanted to protect you. Before she could reply, a pair of headlights appeared in the rearview mirror. A black SUV was following them, fast. They found us, Maya whispered. Ryan gritted his teeth and pressed harder on the gas. The car sped through empty streets, twisting around corners. The SUV stayed close, its lights blinding through the back window. Hold on! Ryan shouted. The car swerved sharply into a narrow alley. The SUV tried to follow but scraped the wall, slowing down for a moment. Ryan pushed through, racing toward the highway. For a few seconds, they had distance. Maya looked behind and saw the SUV shrinking in the dark. Her chest rose and fell in heavy breaths. Did we lose them? She asked. Not for long, Ryan said. They'll track us again. Then what do we do? He looked ahead, eyes locked on the road. We go to the one place they won't follow. Where? He didn't answer. Just kept driving. An hour later, they reached the outskirts of the city. The lights disappeared behind them, replaced by endless dark fields and old roads. The sky was heavy with clouds. Finally, Ryan stopped near an abandoned gas station. The place looked forgotten, broken signs, rusted pumps, shattered windows. Why here? Maya asked, confused. Ryan stepped out and motioned for her to follow. This used to be one of our safe houses, he said. No one knows about it anymore. They walked inside. Dust covered everything. The smell of old oil and rust filled the air. Ryan checked around carefully, then pulled a loose tile from the floor. Underneath was a small metal box. He opened it and took out a tiny black drive. This is it, he said quietly. The thing they've been chasing me for. Maya looked at it, the small object that had turned their lives upside down. What are you going to do with it? I'm going to end this, he said. Once and for all. He connected the drive to an old laptop. Maya watched as files appeared on the screen, names, photos, documents, all proof of a secret operation meant to erase anyone who knew too much. Ryan took a deep breath and began uploading everything to a secure server. Once this is out there, he said, they can't hide anymore. But before the upload finished, the laptop beeped. A signal. Someone had found them. Ryan, Maya whispered, her voice shaking. They're coming. He didn't stop typing. Just a few more seconds. Outside, engines roared. Headlights lit up the broken windows. Ryan turned to her. Take the car. Go to your sister's. Don't stop for anyone. No, she cried. I'm not leaving you. You have to, he said firmly. They want me, not you. Tears streamed down her face. Ryan, please. He looked at her one last time, his voice soft. I love you, Maya. Always have. The door burst open. Shadows flooded the room. Ryan hit send. The upload bar hit 100%. A shot rang out. Maya screamed. When she opened her eyes again, the room was filled with flashing red and blue lights. The police had arrived. The attackers were gone. Ryan lay on the floor, still. The laptop beside him was cracked, but the upload had gone through. Later, Maya found out the files had spread everywhere: news outlets, government networks, social media. The truth Ryan had risked his life to expose was finally out. It changed everything. The people behind it were arrested. The program was shut down. But nothing could bring Ryan back. A week later, Maya stood by his grave, holding the small metal drive in her hand. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. She whispered softly, "You kept your promise, Ryan. You protected me. And you told the world the truth." She wiped her tears and looked at the horizon. Somewhere deep inside, she knew he was still watching over her. As she walked away, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number appeared on the screen. He did the right thing. But it's not over yet. Maya froze. Her heart skipped a beat. She looked around, the wind brushing against her hair. Somewhere, in the distance, a black car was parked, its engine running. The truth wasn't done with her yet. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps bring more emotional and suspenseful stories like this to life.